Good Friday evening here on the west coast of California. It's 8:30 p.m. Who knows what time it is where you are, or if you're watching this after it's been archived. Who knows what day and time it is? Maybe it's 1,000 years from now, when I have long since reincarnated and am watching myself, completely clueless that I came from this scar right here. All right. So we're going to talk today about who the hell knows what, because we are having a partial solar eclipse, which will be around midnight, a little after midnight my time. So early Saturday morning, the 11th. In at least the numerology that I became familiar with, which is probably very different from, most other numerology. I'm not really a numerologist, but 11 was the number of infinity. So 8 is also, connected to the 8th house, which is sudden transformation. So sudden transformation into infinity. As you know, eclipses are Rahu, the north node of the moon, swallowing the soul. And what is Rahu? Rahu represents your desires, your ambitions, your obsessions, your addictions. And the lesson is that when you lose sight of the soul and you get so wrapped up in limited desires, that you lose the infinity of your soul, you lose your soul. What is it in the Norse tradition that the sun is eaten by the wolf? I believe it's the wolf Treachery. His name means treachery. And the moon is swallowed by the wolf, whose name means betrayal and treachery. I made the video, go and watch it. I can't remember which is which. I believe the moon is consumed by betrayal, and the sun is consumed by treachery, hate, and I forget which one the other one is. Anyway, so as you can see, Rahu, the god of smoke, has put his smoke in front of me to where I don't even know what I've taught in the past. So what can we be focusing on? And what can we be talking about? So we're having a solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer. Of course, this is Vedic astrology. I don't know what it is in Western. The sidereal zodiac, not the tropical zodiac. And so I was thinking about this today. What little I've looked into is that what you take into your heart, that this is an opportunity to really examine the stories that you tell yourself, that you take into your heart. So this is a good time to talk about the first and most important thing you need to know to be successful in any spiritual path, especially the one that I teach. The first one is, number one, everything in your existence is based on your assumptions. And most of your assumptions, you're completely, totally unconscious of them. They become absorbed into your unconscious mind. They become fixed, carved in stone, and that sets the tone for everything. If you have the assumption that God hates you, that you are born in sin, and that you are destined for eternal torment, then every other conclusion that you make will be based on that. So you have to start with that, by the way. If you want to believe that Jesus came and saved your soul, you have to first start with the assumption that your soul is damned. That God has damned your soul simply because you were born, and that is a punishment that came from Adam and Eve, who knows how many millions of years ago, supposedly, when they, wanted to know things. And that infuriated Jehovah to such a degree that he then cursed all of the descendants of the first humans. And so since you are a descendant of the first humans, then you're damned. And so you need a savior. Then you can get all happy about Jesus' love and Jesus' sacrifice. But if you don't buy into the assumption that you're damned, if you don't buy into the assumption that God hates you and that you need to be saved, then the whole idea of some guy coming down and going through all that pain for you seems a little bit dramatic. And, dude, maybe you need to go to some, Codependence Anonymous meetings. I mean, seriously, you're going to take on the sins of the whole world? I mean, let people work through their own mistakes already, dude, seriously. I mean, think about it. This is like the litmus test for religion, right? When we talk about Jehovah and the things that Jehovah said in the Old Testament, the things that he did, supposedly, like, Joshua coming into the land of Canaan, which, by the way, is where all of the Hebrews really came from. They didn't come from Canaan, then Egypt, and Canaan. They all came from Canaan. But anyway, that's another story. So he shows up, and he's going to, by God's divine order, wipe out every single man, woman, child, and animal. Now, why is that not, the mark of a total sadist, mass murderer? If somebody does that now, we put them away. It's what we did to Hitler. That was what Hitler did. He thought he needed to take out whole groups of people in order to be safe. When we had to go over there and take him out. So why is it that God can do that, but we can't? When we do it, that's the sign of a psychopath. But when God does it, it's his righteousness, and we can understand it. It starts from an assumption that God is perfect and you are a worthless piece of crap. So if you don't share that assumption, you create a different assumption. Now, what if you don't have one? This is, by the way, where we are. This is the power of eclipses. Because eclipses will bring out all of your unconscious issues. I can't speak for you guys, but holy crap, the stuff that I've been going through past couple of weeks, because we had another eclipse a couple of weeks ago, and now we're having one now, so we've got kind of like this energy of eclipse for the past couple of weeks. The crap that my brain has been putting me through, my feelings, and you saw this. I can't really see it now. It's almost healed up, but I scraped my face out surfing, and so I haven't been able to go surfing because I've chosen to stay in out of the sun to let my skin heal, and I don't do well when I'm not exercising and surfing on a regular basis. So all kinds of craziness is going through my head. And so this is an opportunity with this eclipse to take a look at what are your assumptions. What are your assumptions? Let's talk about QAnon. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about it, but I know that they start with a bunch of assumptions. Let's start with any other conspiracy theory. It starts with an assumption. Now, conspiracy theories thrive off of the assumption that you can't trust anything or anybody, except for some guy down the street who said, I saw something on YouTube and I looked up something and the number 11 or the number 17 or whatever, and anything, if you take the letters and it adds up to the number 17, then some mysterious guy named Q is giving out some message to the world, which means that, that starts with an assumption, the assumption that you can't trust anything. You can't trust anything that's right in front of you. Now, sometimes you can't. I'm not saying that these assumptions are wrong, but you have to examine them. Let's talk about Christianity again. The assumption that the Bible is the inerrant, literal Word of God, which means that the entire universe was made in 6 solar days. If you accept that assumption, then when we move into the modern scientific age and we have all of these really amazing scientific tools like mathematics and all kinds of other things, that you can then radiocarbon date things and find out, holy crap, these things are really old. That there are these things called dinosaurs that were walking the earth millions of years ago. But if you accept the assumption of the Bible, then you have to come up with some creative thing like saying, well, God put dinosaur bones into the earth to test our faith. I actually heard that from somebody. Some Christian actually said that and meant it. Well, you can't be that crazy and stupid without starting with a faulty assumption. So your assumptions, if your assumptions are faulty, every conclusion that you put on top of that is also going to be faulty. And so this is an opportunity. This is the opportunity when Loki comes to destroy your universe. And he does it to help you see the truth. You know, little children have to believe certain things to get by. The belief in Santa Claus is a really wonderful thing for a child. Once they get to a certain age, and hopefully, you understand, you remember when somebody told you that, I think I can remember when some kid came up to me and said, Santa Claus isn't real. And I don't think it bothered me all that much. But for some people, that's really devastating. So this is what Loki comes to show you. And in this, Rahu in Cancer, then what we get to look at is we get to look at what we take deep into our heart, what we really take deep into our emotional selves. So let's be really clear about something. I haven't talked about this in a while. Emotional agendas. Some people, here's an assumption. So you have to start with the assumption, if you are a critical thinker, that every human being on the planet has an emotional agenda. People, still will want to message me and say, yes, I don't have any more emotional agendas. No, that is somebody who has an emotional agenda to believe that he has no emotional agendas, that they're above all of that, they're above their emotions. An emotional agenda means that you have a need, you have an emotional need. That's a person who needs to be in control and to be separate and not be swayed by their emotions. So this is probably somebody who's really afraid of their I keep wanting to say inferiority, but their insecurity, their being vulnerable. This is very frightening. So people who are afraid of being vulnerable, they build up defenses, and one defense is to completely separate yourself from your emotions and say, yes, I'm completely scientific in everything that I do. I don't have any emotional agendas. Let me give you another example of that kind of an emotional agenda. I remember watching some science show about the first humans, the Australopithecines. And they were coming up with, the day in the life of So we had a bunch of actors in chimpanzee suits, basically, walking around, and they showed one getting, I think they were trying to explain how they found the bones of this one, which was in a cave as a result of a leopard had taken it up, and as he was eating him, the bones are falling off from the tree into some crack in a cave. And that's where the bones were found. And so they came up with this recreation of, these bunch of Australopithecines, hunched over, walking through the African savanna, and they get nabbed by some, one of them gets nabbed by a leopard, and then of course everybody runs off and hides behind a tree, and they're looking from up in the tree as the leopard is, killing, and you hear the guy screaming, ah! And then they say this. These are scientists, mind you. They said, and they're just sitting there looking at the guy, their family member, being torn apart, and they're not doing anything. They have no emotion. They're just completely staring blankly at it like it's nothing. And this, you hear the voiceover say, and we have no evidence that they, something like, we have no evidence that they had any emotional reaction to this kind of thing. And I'm listening, and I'm like, what the hell? What universe do you live in? What do you mean we don't have any evidence? What kind of evidence do you want? Are you expecting a pre-human hominid to write it down? You want to carve it into a rock somewhere? Is he going to record it on his iPhone and leave it there for you? We don't have any emotions about when one of our family members is killed by. But of course you have evidence. All you got to do is go into the forest and steal somebody's, go to the forest and steal a chimpanzee's baby from them. You'll find out pretty quick how emotionally attached they are to their family members. Your dog, your cat, they have strong emotional attachments. What I'm trying to get at is that this is an emotional agenda some scientist had. This is somebody who got into science to disconnect themselves. And they are projecting it onto the Australopithecines that they don't have any emotional attachments. This is somebody who's clearly afraid of emotions and is using science in order to do that. Now, we can have emotional agendas about anything. I have emotional agendas. What's important is to be able to know what your emotional agendas are. That's what's important. So in other words, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Mike, you're really out of whack here on this, or, on that one video you were talking about, you were really, coming down way too hard, and that was your issue. Ideally, if I'm honest and I'm not feeling that way, and it doesn't feel to me like I was out of balance in some way, then my ideal response would be, well, I'm not consciously aware of that. You might be right. Because obviously, if it's unconscious, I wouldn't be aware of it. So the best that you can do is to say, I'm not aware of that, but I'm willing. When somebody doesn't have an emotional agenda, in other words, let's say somebody really doesn't have any prejudice against sexual choice, right? So somebody comes up to him and says, I think you're a latent homosexual. Now, if the person has an emotional agenda, they're going to get angry. They're going to react, or they're going to have some strong emotional reaction to that. If you honestly don't have an emotional agenda about it, then you go, well, I don't feel that way. I mean, so far, if I am, then I am, but I don't feel that way now. So that's one of the ways you know that somebody has an emotional agenda. They have a strong emotional reaction. So you have emotional agendas. I have emotional agendas. I try to be, to the best of my ability, I try to be aware of my emotional agendas. I have strong emotional agendas against Christianity. But I also think that I have a lot of objective truth to bring about it. To be able to separate the two is the mark of being a critical thinker. I am a human being, so there are going to be times when I'm not thinking critically, but I do my best. So we're talking about Rahu in Cancer and Loki taking off his mask. So what I want to talk to you about, now let's talk about Loki a little bit. Loki is the trickster. Loki is seen as, if you were to take him at face value, he is this conniving, selfish, destructive person who brings the end of the universe. And if it wasn't for Loki's betrayal, the universe would go on, and so the army of Odin fights against him, fights against the destructive forces. But now we're going to take a look and see who Loki really is. And Loki in Cancer. Cancer is the seat of the mother. Cancer is the moon. The moon lords over Cancer. The moon is emotions. That's why I'm talking about emotional agendas. And so at this time when Rahu comes into Cancer, especially when we have an eclipse like this, what it means is that we have an opportunity to take a look at what our emotional agendas are. Because what you will experience if you are attached to something that will not bring you satisfaction, because again, Rahu is your obsessions, your ambitions, your unfulfilled desires. They're desires that cannot be fulfilled. The extreme expression of desires that cannot be fulfilled is addiction. You know, you stick a needle in your neck and you die from it because you want so badly to have that experience. And what happens is when you take, let's say we're talking about opiates, if you've ever had any kind of procedure where they've given you pain pills, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, woo, this is all warm and fuzzy and feels really nice. But then it's like, I'd like to have that experience again. But it's never enough. You know, you take the pill, you have a good feeling, but the feeling is, it just makes you want more of it. It's never enough. Sex is another great example. I mean, it's really hard to just get enough sex. It's not like, okay, if I could just have sex one time with the perfect man or woman, depending on what your desire is, and you get that perfect fantasy, and it feels you get exactly how you want it to feel, and everything exactly the way you want it, and it's absolute utter bliss. And then the next day you're like, I got to do that again. Let's try another one. But maybe this time I need two. I need two of them. Or, yeah, I need two of them, and then after that you have two of them. It's like, I need four. Because four, then I can do this, and then I can have somebody doing this to me, and then I'll be doing that, and then they're doing that, and then I can watch this, and then I can hear that. That'll be perfect. It's never enough. This is Rahu. Rahu is never enough. This is why Rahu is the significator of thieves, of criminals, of prostitution, of drugs. This is why Shiva is associated with Rahu. Rahu is the snake. Because Shiva represents non-attachment, the highest awareness that has no attachment. This is why in Hindu mythology, Shiva's running around with all of the thieves and the prostitutes and the murderers and the drug addicts, because he doesn't judge them. And they feel safe with him because he doesn't have any judgment about them, because he's not attached. That's why he's associated with marijuana, because he can smoke it and it doesn't do anything to him. I'll tell a story about, I don't know how true this is, but it's a great story. I think it was Ram Dass. And I may be conflating two stories together, but oh well. Ram Dass, and this is in the 60s when LSD is coming in. LSD is supposed to be bringing enlightenment. And he has this guru, supposedly enlightened master guru, and he tells him about this LSD and you should take it because of blah, 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 blah. So the guru says, okay. So he gives it to him, he takes it, and then, the time elapses, however long that is, before, he's supposed to be high. And he's like, what are you seeing? He's like, nothing. I don't feel any different. The idea is that when you don't have any illusions, then you're not attached to anything, then it doesn't matter what external stimuli. You don't need it. It's like Shiva. Nothing moves him one way or the other. I heard another story, and this one I believe had to do with a Zen Buddhist master, and somebody did the same thing, and some kind of hallucinogenic chemical, and gave it to him. I think it was LSD again. And take this, and blah blah blah. And he takes it, and when the time elapses, he says, "How do you feel?" He says, "I have a headache." That's it. Which means that you take a drug and you get all flipped out and you have a vision. Guess what? That you're having an experience of connected to your illusions, your projection. Doesn't mean you won't have a positive experience or learn something from it. It just means that you can't have that without your own illusions. So you get to a place where you don't need that. That's the ideal. This is what Rahu is here to do. Every time that Rahu brings a lesson to you, what he first does is he comes and allows you to be tempted. Listen to my words. I'm being very specific with my words. He allows you to be tempted, something in you that needs to be experienced, some kind of desire, some kind of illusion that you need some awareness to. He will come in the form of a temptation, or he will come to you in the form of a deeply unfulfilled desire, a sadness of if I only had this, it would all be okay, victim mentality. He will allow that to be stimulated in you. And the way he does that is he blocks off the light of the soul, so that your mind, which is your emotions, which, as you know, the moon is very happy in astrology when it has the full light of the sun. The full moon is very happy. The moon in Leo, very happy. The new moon is when the moon is not very happy. I was born under a new moon, even though I'm a Leo. So that's my emotion. That's where my emotional ups and downs come. And that's why, when it comes to new moons and these kinds of things, when they start coming, I really feel them. I go, I really just, the past couple days, it's like I have no idea who I am or what's happening or where I'm going. And oh my gosh, everything's going to fall apart and I'm not going to, how am I going to, that's what happens to me. Because Rahu comes in and blocks off the light of the soul, the light of infinity. And you feel trapped in finite time. You become afraid. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough love. You don't have enough, listed. And he does that so that you can be honest with yourself and go, wow, I've really got some insecurity around money or love or security or ego. That's the ideal. The ideal is that you have such a consciousness about you that you don't have any emotional agendas or attachments, and that you can honestly go, wow, let's look at that feeling I'm having. Where is that feeling of insecurity coming from? Obviously, I'm taken care of. Unresolved issues. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying go into a state of denial and pretend everything is blissful when you're racked in emotional pain. Don't go into denial. That's not what I'm saying. But examine it. So this is where your assumption comes in. So assumptions are different from feelings. Unless, of course, your assumption comes out of a feeling. For instance, talking about, again, conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories are based in fear. Without fear, you do not need to construct a conspiracy. Because a conspiracy says you don't know what somebody else is thinking or doing. It's a secret. They're hiding it from you and they're pretending to be something they're not. So you start from the assumption you cannot trust anybody. That assumption starts from being in a place of fear. So if you are able to acknowledge that, then when Rahu gets between your soul and your mind is now blocked off from the sunlight of infinity, and the fear comes up. I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me. I don't have enough money. I'll never get married. If I only had kids, it would all be okay. When those come up, if your assumption is firm, then you go, wow, this feeling is not in line with what I believe to be true about the universe. But if you don't even have that, then what happens is when you get in that place, then you can live there. This is the difficulty, like, let's talk about the flat earthers. I don't know if there's any flat earthers watching. I'm not a flat earther, but it won't matter. They have such an emotional attachment to the belief that they're being lied to. Again, you can't trust anything anybody says. And there's some emotional agenda and attachment to the idea that if we can find out about the truth of the flat earth, then somehow the elites or whoever won't be able to, in some cases, keep me reincarnated on this prison flat earth. And it won't matter if you come to them with, here's a video I took. I went up into space and I took my iPhone and I took a video out the window. You see, that's me. And you show it to them, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, no, that's you're from NASA, or you're an agent of NASA, and there's no way that can be real. That's all CGI. I mean, look at it. Look at how crappy that is. It's like a fisheye, and that proves it. It's all CG. It won't matter what you do. You come back with a rock from the moon. You get it analyzed in a lab, and you come back and you say, "There's nothing on Earth like this. This comes from the moon." They'll say, "No, that's all fake. It does. You guys are from NASA, and you guys are all liars." They have an emotional agenda to stay in that belief system. They don't have a desire to know the honest truth. So it won't matter what you say. That's the problem with emotional agendas, is that when you are being controlled by your emotional agendas, even if the truth is right in front of you, you will reject it. And then we could go into why, and I wish I could put to words the feeling I have connected to why people want to stay in their illusion. Why they want to stay in their illusion, and make no mistake about it. People who are in illusion are there because they choose to be. Because the reality of the universe is constantly bombarding you with the truth. I believe this is the sole cause of illness, insanity, misery, that the denial of the truth that is constantly coming to you from the source of the universe is so frightening that you build up walls to protect yourself. For many years, since I was 18, all the way up until probably just a few years ago, 10 years ago, yeah, probably about 10 years ago, I had to go out into the wilderness by myself for 2 weeks. In fact, it's not on this channel, on another channel. It's called 6 Days. And I chronicle, I think, one of the last trips that I took. And what I would do is I would, you can hike it, but that's hard on my feet. I got flat feet. So I would take a horse and a mule and a guide, and you put all your camping gear and stuff on the mule, and you go, and I would go 20 miles up into the backcountry of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and they'd drop me off, and I'd have them come get me in 2 weeks. So I'd keep myself out there. I would go at fall, right after the 1st of September, because then all of the tourists and all of the kids who were on summer vacation had gone home, and I'd have the whole mountains to myself. Sometimes I would never see another human being for 2 weeks. And what would happen for me is that I would go there because I had to get all of the psychic garbage out of my head that to me it felt like was being just bombarded into me from just being around human beings, watching television. And what happens is that, this is what I've experienced, is that human beings, because nature is constantly bombarding us with the truth, human beings, it's intolerable for them. It feels like it's tearing them apart because it's destroying all of their ego-based illusions about themselves. And so in order to protect themselves from that, we create cities. And I could feel when I would come out of those mountains after being there for 2 weeks, and by about day 6 of the 12 days, I think it was 12. If I said 6 days earlier, I meant 12 days. By about day 6, my head would open up, and then I'd realize all the garbage that was in my head. Like, for instance, money. Money does not exist. Let me just tell you that. If you think what you need is more money, you are saying, I need nothing. I need more of nothing. It doesn't exist. I mean, we know now there's just no such thing as money. It's all an arbitrary illusion. Even when we go back to when dollar bills used to be IOUs for silver coins. That's what they used to be. A dollar bill was an IOU from the government for a silver dollar. Even then, that dollar bill means nothing unless you and I agree that it signifies a dollar of silver. But even then, you take that silver. You can't do anything with that silver. You might be able to, melt it into some really expensive, toothpick or something like that. But you can't do anything with it. You can't eat it. You can't wear it. You can't drive it. You can't do anything for you. Gold, same thing. Gold is just a precious metal. Great, it's pretty and it's golden, but it can't do anything for you. If you take it to, some tribe in the middle of New Guinea that hasn't been contacted, I think there's still a few, and you walk up to them and give them that, they're going to say, what am I supposed to do with that? I can't even wipe my ass with that. What is that? It's pretty. According to Tacitus, when, the way that we look at those uncontacted tribes, wherever they are, that is how the Romans looked at the ancient Germanic tribes. The people who are now, in essence, running the world, they're starting to lose that, but they've been running the world, the Germanic peoples. Those people 2,000 years ago were the most primitive people on the planet, according to the Romans. And so the Romans would go into this uncharted territory with all these Germanic barbarians, and they would bring gifts, and they would bring, precious metals, stones, like goblets, like cups, shiny silver goblets. And according to Tacitus, they liked silver better than gold because silver was shinier. And they preferred to drink out of their wooden goblets than out of the silver ones. So they'd take the silver one and go, and they'd put it on the thing, and then they'd drink out of their... In other words, they didn't care about it. It didn't have any meaning to them because what they saw as valuable was cows. Cows gave you everything you needed. Gave you milk, gave you cheese, gave you meat, sinew, bone, gave you clothes to wear. So this is what Rahu does. Rahu comes and shows you the meaninglessness of it all. So of course, when Rahu is coming over in between the sun and the moon, and people start to flip out because and then they start worrying about money. I need more money. That is a sign that you realize that money has no value. And you want it to have value because in your mind, if you have a lot of it, then you'll be safe. But once you realize that thing that you've been trying to pile up that's supposed to keep you safe doesn't even exist, then you start to flip out because you have nothing to protect you from the ravages of infinity. So when I would come out of those mountains after 2 weeks, I hit day 6 and I would go, oh my God, I'm so worried about reputation and I'm worried about money and none of this means anything. Oh my God. And then I just would live, in connection to nature by myself for, at least another week. And by the end of that, it would feel like if I stayed there, that I would, walk through some magical gate into another realm and never come back. And I'd have all kinds of crazy dreams, and all kinds of things would show up in my campsite, and things. You start to realize that now we know why our ancestors saw the forest and the mountains as this magical place full of trolls and elves and fairies, and because they're out there. You have to go to the wilderness that's untouched. Once human beings bring their projection to it, they can destroy that. I mean, it can look pretty, but there won't be anything there. I found that too. There's places that still have all that, and there are places that don't. One of the places that does is in the backcountry of the Sierras. That's why Bigfoot is sighted there, because it still has that power that comes from all of that. The power of those rocks. Anyway, it's a whole other story. And I could feel when I would come out of those mountains after 12 days, and my body felt so light, and my brain felt so open, and I felt totally different. As I was coming down that mountain, I could feel it. I would bump into like this, even if it was completely clear, I would pass through this invisible, like, energy field, and all of a sudden I could feel the bombardment of everybody's insecurity and all of the thoughts and the feelings, and I would weep because the purity that I wasn't connected to anymore. And now I had to go back and live with all that garbage flying around me, all that psychic garbage. And it would take me about a week at least for me to be able to function, because I was like, my body was buzzing. And I just wasn't completely back into this, human reality. But, there's a lot of people that can't do that. You talk to them about that, and I'm telling you, you take the average person, especially, modern day. I mean, even now, I'm totally addicted to my phone and my iPad and my email. I mean, it's crazy. If you were to take all that stuff away from me, I would go crazy just like everybody else. But you take somebody who's never had that, who doesn't know what any of that's like, and you put them up into the wilderness, they start to go just nutbags crazy. Start to come out of their skin. Part of that is because the wilderness is a direct gateway to that infinity, and when that infinity is constantly bombarding your illusions, it destroys that, and it's very frightening for most people, which is why, as I said, why we've created cities. We create cities because they create this bubble. And now it's a real bubble, because now we have actual things flying around. I mean, if I were to go on to my computer here and look to see all of the wireless networks, I mean, there's, how many? There's 20 that'll come up, because there's so many people around me. Each of them has their own, their wireless internet connection with their own thing. And it's just, we get bombarded with it. And that's just on, now it's a real thing. But even before that, it was happening on a psychic level. Which is why, for me, if I'm not doing things like surfing all the time, or, if I don't have some kind of physical regimen that gets me up in the morning, I stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I feel the most free, because everybody's asleep and I don't have to listen to them. Anyway, so we're talking about Rahu. So what I think is, again, Rahu in Cancer means to become aware of the story that you buy into, that you take deep into yourself. Your assumptions about yourself, your assumptions about the universe, your assumptions about everything, and how you process the stories that come to you. If you're watching whatever your side of the news network is, how are you processing that information? That information, that when it comes to you, are you asking yourself, am I getting the whole truth? Or are you allowing yourself to be emotionally stimulated and join the team? Yay, Trump, or, Trump's a crook. No, Trump is truth. No, Trump is a crook. Which one? Are you being manipulated? Are you enjoying the emotional rush you get from being angry? I remember being in a group of people, and some guy was talking about, I have to stop watching Facebook because I'm just getting so infuriated about what's happening in the government today. And it's obvious this guy is, he's just he is just eating the fake news that was going out over Facebook. Remember that? It's still happening. But, he was just not. He didn't want to actually find out the truth. He didn't actually want to watch the news or read different periodicals, or he didn't want to get different perspectives to find out where the truth was. He wanted to. He couldn't stand not being infuriated by whatever InfoWars or whatever else he was being force fed. He was choosing to gluttonize himself with. Ultimately, that was because he was trying to get off of drugs and alcohol, and that was his diversion. But you get my point. I'm starting to babble, so I'm going to stop now. I'm going to take any questions you have about anything, but any questions you have about understanding, being able to look at the truth regardless of how you're feeling at the moment. To know your feelings, to accept them, to be with them, and yet be willing to have your agendas put aside to see what the truth is, regardless of how that makes you feel. That's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to take a short break. I'll come back and I'll answer any questions. Again, if you're new to the channel, what I would like for you to do is please just communicate to me through a question. The way I know you're writing a question is you say question, and then you write your question. If it's just a paragraph and I don't know what it is, I'm going to bypass it. Okay? And if you're, yeah. So that's all. So I'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll see what happens. right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to eat something. Okay, so let's see what kind of questions we got here. Tamu Ingina, hello, my sister. How are you? She says, question, is the flute from the intro from your CD? Yes and no. Yes, in that, this is the power of, the supportive power of the true Shakti. That when my partner was still here with me, she sat me down and she said, you have all these amazing things, and here's what you've got to show. You've got to give people this, 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 and this. And one of them was, I have a couple of flute songs, and she says, you got to make a CD. You got to make a CD, because she would listen to it all the time. When she was, whatever she was doing, she was listening to my flutes. So you can go onto my channel, and again, let me help and remind those of you who don't know how to do it. Find out how to search from within somebody's YouTube channel. There's a difference between searching YouTube and searching within somebody's channel. And depending on what device you have, it's going to be different. Find out how to do that. Go onto my channel and just type in flute, and I think two or three flute songs will come up, and I have them looped for like 30 minutes so that you can just listen to them. That's one of them. By the way, that I really like listening to that. The truth is, I'm not trained. Nobody really trained me how to play flute. I just picked up native style flutes and started learning how to play. That's, in case you're interested, that's Ketu in the 5th house for me. It means in a past life I must have been a master musician, probably a master flautist. And so in this life, even though I don't know what I'm doing, I can pick it up and start playing. That comes out. To me, it sounds nice until people tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. People tell me how amazing it is, and oh my God, but I'm just it's just a hobby. I haven't even done it for years, but I don't have it on ACD yet, but someday I will, I guess. Let's see. Thank you for asking. All right, so I'm looking for the questions. And all right, question. Daggerus, do you know where I can find shamanic healers? Yes, you found one right here. For soul retrieval and cleansing and things. Anyone with ideas, that'd be great. So, that kind of stuff, I don't know anybody offhand. I don't even know where you live, all that kind of stuff. So, what I can say to you is, would you like to do it yourself? How would you like to be able to do those things yourself? If so, go to thunderwizard.com and you can learn how to do that there. Makes me want to ask you a bunch of questions, like why do you need that, all that kind of stuff. But I won't do that today. Crazy beautiful. Crazy beautiful. Question. Is holding someone emotionally hostage a karmic cycle? Again, my response is I want to ask you all kinds of questions like, why are you asking that? Who is being held emotionally hostage? Is it you? Are you keeping somebody else hostage? Is a karmic cycle meaning that you can't get out of it? Are you trapped in it? I mean, there's just so many questions. But the short answer is yes, every relationship is a karmic debt, including parents, children, neighbors, obviously romantic connections, friends. There's always a karmic cycle. And once you've paid off that karmic debt, the relationship will die every time. That's how you know. If you're in a relationship and you're fighting about nonsense, you go to therapists and you go to counselors and you're both, relatively sane people, but for some reason you just can't stop fighting over where to put the butter and which way the toilet paper roll should go, and doesn't, or one of you will be trying really hard to be rational and reasonable, and the other one just is unreasonable and you can't talk to them, or the communication, no matter what, everybody's responding negatively no matter what happens, that's a sign that the karmic debt has been paid and the universe says it's time to go. Being held emotionally hostage is a choice. So the short answer is, of course it's karmic, but that doesn't absolve you. Just because it's karmic doesn't mean that you have to respond unconsciously to the karmic stimuli that's coming your way. You are responsible to become conscious. So being held emotionally hostage is a choice. Now, it doesn't take away from the person who is trying to take you hostage emotionally, because people do that. I'll give you one very easy example. People who are chronically late. You've got to be at the theater at 6 o'clock, and your girlfriend was supposed to be ready 20 minutes ago, and she still is in the bathroom. And she just says, "Oh, that's me. I'm always late. Just have to get used to it." No, that's her unconscious way of keeping him hostage. Keeps people hostage. That's a little example. It doesn't mean she's a horrible person, but that's just one example. And you could decide to go, you know what? I'm just not going to the movies with you anymore because I don't want to be held hostage. And then, of course, she'll fight with you and all that. If you're being held hostage emotionally, then that's your choice. And yes, it is karmic. And karmic challenges are challenges that your soul has decided to grow past. So instead of talking about being held hostage by somebody, you ask yourself, how can I get the strength to break away from this? I'm talking about this a lot. All right, so question, Jedi Black Knight question. Is it correct to assume that we would face severe repercussions if we tried to stop someone, even unknowingly, from fulfilling their orlog? Again, why are you asking that question? I'm far more interested in why you're asking that than to answer that question. Are you trying to stop somebody from fulfilling their orlog? Do you feel that somebody's trying to stop you and you're worried there's going to be repercussions? Facing severe repercussions if we try, first off, orlog means that this is your origin law. This is what you and the universe, before you were incarnated, you put down for yourself. This is what I'm going to be. So the only person that can stop you from fulfilling your orlog is you. If you are in a situation where it's impossible because of what these people are doing to me, then that's because you manifested and created that so that you would have an excuse to say just that. Well, I can't fulfill my orlog because look at what they're doing to me. It's impossible. I'm a victim. So nobody can do that. Now, if somebody's trying to stop somebody from doing their orlog, that's their own issue. But it's not like they're going to have more severe repercussions than anything else. They're going to have repercussions based on their actions, based on their consciousness or lack thereof. But nobody can prevent anybody else's orlog. It's not possible. Great. Okay, so again, looking for the questions. Kings, did I miss a question? See, this is the thing. If you guys say a bunch of stuff, then I don't know where the questions are, and then I bypass people's questions, and then people get mad at me. So if you want to keep people from getting mad at me, then don't write anything unless it's a question. All right. Mad Sweeney's Beer, question. What planet soothes Rahu? It's a very good question. The planet that keeps Rahu in his place is Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of orlog, planet of dharma, planet of your soul destiny. He represents that. your chart, everybody's chart is different. There may be in your chart, like for me, the moon is the planet that specifically for me is tuned to my unconscious path. But Jupiter, you know, in and of itself, you know, that's the normal job of Jupiter. It's the priest. And in the ninth house, the house of spirituality, the house of the temple. So let's see here. That's a good question. So one of the things, the way that you work through your illusions, your addictions, your fears, your unfulfilled desires is through spiritual practice, meditation, ritual, those kinds of things, going to the temple, reading mythology, you know, praying to your deity. Those are all things that will get in the way of Rahu's power over you. But again, Rahu is still trying to help you. He's trying to help you take responsibility for your self-generated limitation. I'm going to say that again because that sounded really good when I heard it come out. Rahu is trying to help you, I don't even know what I just said. He's trying to help you become aware of your self-generated limitation. And Jupiter is trying to connect you to your truth as well, but sometimes Jupiter is a little too nice. And for that, then you have to have Mars come in. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. So, yeah, new people like Crazy Beautiful, I'm so glad you're on the channel. Please limit what you have to say just to questions. So, people are new to the channel, they don't know any better, but please limit it to just to questions. Otherwise, I have to scroll through it because I really don't want to take the time to read people's stuff. I want to be able to help people and answer people's questions. So, let's see here. Trying to find the questions. Warhammer XLK question. Hi, Michael. What is this beautiful music you played during breaks? That's me playing the flute. I was playing a Native American style flute, but I was playing it in a Middle Eastern scale, so that you can finger it a different way. So instead of it being a pentatonic minor, it comes out as whatever the hell, I don't know the name of it. The typical Middle Eastern scale. Kingslayer 44 question. Is the black sun a rune? I don't know what you mean by the black sun. Is that one of those racist Odinist things with the SS and all that? Or are you talking about... First off, it's not a rune. If you're talking about the symbol that I think you're talking about, I believe it is a Slavic pre-Christian symbol of the sun. But it's not a rune. And what does it mean? It does not mean what the majority of people are using. That's why I don't use these. I mean, even this symbol here is misused. But this is my symbol, meaning that it has a strong connection to me, so I use it. But it's not a rune. A rune, there's only so many runes. You know, there's the 24 runes. They're the letters of the alphabet. Loki Tier Ducatu question. Do you have any advice for those of us called to work with Trickster medicine during this time of Rahu, removing his mask? Yes, I do. My experience with Loki is that when I work with him, which I do very sparingly because I have a huge, huge respect for his ability to, press on that tender emotional agenda. I am not free of emotional agendas. I am as human as anybody else, and it's just as painful for me when I have to deal with my self-centered illusion stuff. So, I don't go into Loki's presence or Rahu's presence lightly. When I do, What I remember is that Loki said to me, listen, I just want you to be yourself. When you come to me, I don't need all the pomp and the circumstance, and I don't need, what Thor needs when he wants to be praised and worshipped because he's the priest. I just want you to come and talk to me, and the only thing that I want you to do is just be honest with me. Sort of like just sitting down with your friend and having a beer. Sit down with him, and so I recommend that. If you drink alcohol, I don't, but if you do, then sit down with him and give him some mead. Sit down with him and drink. That's what was what he wants with Odin in Odin's flighting, the myth called Odin's flighting. Excuse me, Loki's flighting. Freudian slip. Loki's flighting. In that myth, what he wants is he wants Odin to sit down and drink with him. And he says to him, you and I are blood brothers, and you said that you wouldn't drink without me. So that's what he wants. And if you do that, if you offer that to him in friendship, and not wanting to ask him to do this or to do that or any of that other stuff, because what he wants to do, what Loki really wants to do is he wants to help you. He really just wants to help you, and he wants to help you with the things that are making you sick, that are causing you pain. With Rahu in Cancer, Cancer is the mother, the nurturer, emotional, watery. This is when Loki gets really emotionally connected to human beings. He wants to help. And you have to understand that the whole idea of Ragnarok is not something he takes pleasure in. He takes pleasure in the idea that we will be purged of limitation and, we will be forced to create a new universe, that the gods themselves, including him, will be destroyed and renewed to another level. That's all he wants. But he has so much love and respect for human beings. I mean, the respect he has for human beings is just really deep. I would say more so than any of the other gods, except perhaps Hela. The respect he has for human beings, and Odin too. Odin says him too, so I can't leave him out. But he has as much respect for human beings as any other being in the universe. From his perspective, he feels like he has more respect because he's the one that's willing to do the dirty work. There's a gospel called the Gospel of Judas. And I don't know if you remember that movie in the 80s, I forget what it was, where Jesus didn't die. And in that, I think they took it from the Gospel of Judas, where Jesus gets together with Judas and says, I'm going to sacrifice myself, and I need you to betray me. And Judas is really upset because he's the most faithful servant of Christ in this movie. And he says, you're the only one I can trust. I need you to betray me. So that's Loki. Loki is the one who takes on the guise of the trickster, of the betrayer, and he allows himself to be heaped upon with the scorn of the beings he loves and respects the most, which is human beings. And he knows that the majority of human beings are going to see him as a traitor. Which is interesting because when you look at everything Loki does, it always ends up benefiting somebody. Odin has his horse because of Loki. Thor has his hammer. Freya, the Brisingamen. I mean, we could go on and on and on. He's the one that he ends up bound under the earth with a snake dripping venom on him after working really, really, really hard to get all of the gods so furious with him that they chase him down and tie him to a rock. But if you read that myth, he has to work really hard. He's not stupid. He's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows that he has to push them beyond their limitation, and he does it by telling the truth. There's nothing he says in there that isn't the truth about every single one of the gods. This is Loki. This is Loki in Cancer, where he becomes aware of all of his feelings. I mean, I can feel the emotion as I talk about it. You know, he's just resolute. He is all alone in this. He has nobody else. Nobody else is doing this with him. He is all alone in this. And he's, you know, I'm not saying that so you'll feel sorry for him, just to get an idea of his commitment. So this is why eclipses are the most powerful spiritual time for doing ritual. You know, if you listen to, some Hindus, which I think are operating from, a fear-based sort of really right-hand path denial sort of thing, where they say, go inside and lock the door and light candles and pray to Vishnu because it's, Rahu will do horrible things to you. Whereas the Aghoris are like, no, this is the best time. And they'll go and they'll drink and they'll put themselves into a stupor and they'll do their rituals and their mantras. But, in the middle, the idea is that this is the time when mantra and ritual is 10,000 times stronger than normal times. It's because, your true spiritual growth is going to come when you look Loki and Hela in the face. And when you're willing to take the risk and just have a beer with him and just tell him the truth about where you're at, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Okay? All right, so chew on that for a little bit. Let me take a break, and I'll be right back. Alrighty. So let's see, where were we? Alright, sorry, again, looking for the questions. Black Earth Productions question, how does the individual start to unmask Loki from within themselves? Well, I suppose there's a lot of different ways. As I was saying earlier, I think being willing to look at your own emotional agendas. So let's talk about, I've talked about assumptions earlier on. Let's talk about what critical thinking is. Critical thinking, if you're not familiar with it, go Google it. It's one of the most, if not the most valuable tool that there is in spiritual growth. Without it, you cannot grow spiritually. I think it should be required. I mean, I learned that phrase in college. Even though it was a Christian college, I was a class in critical thinking. It was absolutely one of the best college courses I ever took in my life. And it should be mandatory for everybody. But we have a whole, chunk of people on the planet who have no idea what critical thinking is. So critical thinking starts with first, the understanding that everybody is a human being and has the ability to see things incorrectly. And that in order to see things correctly, if you're able to see things objectively and correctly, then you can make wise choices that will help you in life, no matter what it is we're talking about. So critical thinking says that, number one, that everybody has an emotional agenda. An emotional agenda means that you have an emotional need to believe something. So when you have an emotional need to believe something, you tend to believe it, and you'll choose to believe it regardless of what evidence is brought towards you. You'll fight to hold on to that belief because there's an emotional need to believe it. If somebody is taught as a child that they're born in sin and they need to be saved by Jesus, and without Jesus they will burn in hell, and if you come to them and say Jesus doesn't exist, they will emotionally fight to hold on to that belief, no matter how irrational their thinking becomes. So the first thing is to understand we all have emotional agendas, which means we are all susceptible to being hypnotized and deluded by our own thinking. So then, since that's an awareness that we have, we follow some protocols in order to clear our thinking so that we can see objectively. And the first one is we say, when is something true and when is something false? All right, so that's a very black and white way of looking at things, and things are not always black and white. So when is something true and when is something false, right? Did you sleep with my cousin on our anniversary? Either you did or you didn't. When is something true and when is something false? When is something partially true and partially false? Well, I didn't sleep with him, but we did make out, and I did go to third over the clothes. So technically I didn't sleep with him, but I did cheat on him. So when is something partially true and partially false? When is something sometimes true and sometimes false? Oh, really? So you made out with him on our anniversary? So you're still cheating with him? I hate you. No, I'm not cheating with him now. I was cheating with him then, but we've broken it off and I haven't seen him. So it was true. Sometimes it's true that happened and sometimes it's false. When is something sometimes true and sometimes false? Now, the theory is that if you are emotionally attached, like if you have an emotional agenda, let's say to find an excuse to break up with your boyfriend who cheated with your cousin on your anniversary, then you are going to emotionally have the need to put him in a black and white state where you say, yes, you cheated on him then, you've always cheated, you've cheated with him then, you've always been cheating on me, you always will cheat on me, therefore I'm breaking up with you. So you have an emotional agenda to feel victimized, or you're trying to get rid of him or something. So you're not wanting to look at things rationally. So when it comes to spirituality, are evil beings of light deceiving us and forcing us to come back into manifestation and being reincarnated so that they can suck the life force out of us? Can you ask yourself those questions? Is that true or is that false? Is that partially true or partially false? Is it sometimes true or sometimes false? I can say it's definitely, yeah. Are evil beings of light forcing you to become reincarnated? Is that true or false? You could say that were true if your experience was that when you left the body, you saw a being of light who told you, you're not done. It's time to go back. So that could potentially be true. When you become reincarnated, you have the experience that you're trapped in a hell and you go through all kinds of horrific challenges and you feel that life is pulling your life force out of you. When is something partially true and partially false? It is true you are having that experience, but it's not because of what the being of light did to you. It's because you, being an infinite being, appeared to yourself. By the way, that's the being of light. When you're dying and you go to that being of light is your own soul. It's not another being, it's your own soul. So it's partially true and partially false because it's not some other being forcing you into it. It's you. You are choosing to do it. You're seeing your highest pure self, and your highest pure self says, I'm not done. I've got stuff I need to learn. So you're having a dialogue with yourself and you come back. You think it's God, but it's not, it's you. When is something sometimes true and sometimes false? It is sometimes true that people who choose to continue in a victim mentality will continue to manifest scenarios that drain them of energy and make them feel trapped. But it is also true for those who take full responsibility for their lives, that can magically change that to where they don't have that experience at all. So it is sometimes true for those who choose to assume that they are victims. They will continue to experience that. And it is sometimes not true for those who choose something different. I can tell you from personal experience that both are true. I've experienced both in my life. And I continue on every day from one moment to another to experience both of those states, which is how I know. I know now to go, you know what, I don't have to invest. This is just a feeling. I don't have to invest in this. What would bring me the greatest joy? I'm going to invest in that right now. Or sometimes I become aware that I just need to cry my guts out because, yep, she's never coming back, and that's just it, and I miss her. And well, I had to do that today. I bought a queen-size mattress, and it sounds like nothing, but it's very painful for me because, the last time I had a queen-size mattress, I had a wife that I slept with on that bed. She's not here anymore. So I took my inflatable twin mattress, camping mattress, out of my bedroom, and I put the queen size in there. And I'm obviously on an unconscious level setting myself up for a new relationship. And then I have to sit with that. And I put it out in the living room, and now it's a couch, the twin. And that made me feel good, but that was painful. So I go through all my ups and downs just like everybody else every day. All right. Let's keep going with the questions. Varg Twirl Wizard question. What do you think about the mandala effect? I think I don't know enough about it to comment. I prefer to keep the questions towards what I teach. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. I encourage you to watch the videos, read the books, and come to me with questions about what I teach. That's not that it's not a completely unrelated thing. It is an actual thing, but I'm just, it's very interesting. I'm not enough researched in it to have a worthwhile comment. Corey Lanier, question. I have all the sudden, all right, so I'm a stickler for words. It's not all of the sudden. It's all of a sudden. Okay? That's how you want to say that if you want to speak correctly and not have people like me get bent out of shape when people say things incorrectly, which makes them sound uneducated, you can say that. I have all of a sudden been feeling a lot of emotions and I don't understand why I feel them. There are sad emotions and loneliness and being unloved is all that sweeps my mind, but I know, and then it stops. Oh, but I know otherwise it's not the case. Do you know what that means? Well, I don't know nearly enough because I would need to talk with you to find out all that was going on, but what you describe sounds very much like what happens during an eclipse. Because Rahu gets in between the sun and the moon is your mind, your emotions, and when your mind is not connected to your soul, it feels all alone and it feels very sad and lonely and miserable and fearful and everything's coming down in the end of the world. And so for the last 2 weeks we've been in the effects of eclipse, which is Rahu. If you're not familiar with what Rahu is, you can get an astrology reading from me here at astrology.thunderwizard.com. By the way, some slots have opened up. I had 2 astrology apprentices, and both of them have, in one instance, one has taken a leave of absence, and the other one disappeared without a trace. Just one day up and left and took her video off, and I have no idea. I think I know what happened, but she didn't talk to me. She just left. So there's room for, if you want, to become an astrologer, and for that, go to, if you want to learn my type of astrology certification. I didn't say a space. .thunderwizard.com if you want to learn that. If you want to learn my rune reading style and become a rune reader, you can go to, I think rune certification. No, not certification. Certification.thunderwizard.com. Okay, enough plugging myself in. All right. So I think what you're saying is that you're experiencing. I'd love to look at your chart because I would probably find out where Rahu is and where your moon is and what is happening. If you're in Vedic, not Western, in Vedic, if you are a Cancer rising, you're going to feel this. So anybody who, whatever is in the sign of Cancer in Vedic, in your Vedic chart, as Rahu goes over it, he's going to stimulate it. And if you're a Cancer ascendant, it'll probably be a very powerful time of transformation for you. All right. Ghost in the Machine. Question. What happened? Yeah, see, I gotta scroll through everybody. No. Ghost in the Machine. Question. Is there a Galder? Is there, P-H-E-R-E, that's what you want to say? Is there a Galder an individual could do during the unmasking? Yeah, there's all kinds of things. The Triambakam mantra is one. You can the Othal mantra, the Othal rune, if you want to chant that. There's all different kinds of things. Again, this is what astrology is good for, because then I can see what's going on with you, which will give me a better idea what is best for you. But here's one. Here's a simple one. This is really great for these kinds of things. Anytime there's a spell check. I know what I'm spelling. Om Namah Shivaya. By the way, I do have a CD with that on it, me playing drums and chanting Om Namah Shivaya. I think it's Mantras of power. No. Healing mantras. CD. Go on that. You can hear me playing African drums to Sanskrit mantras, and has Om Namah Shivaya. You can chant Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. That's very helpful. Crazy beautiful question. Why are the spelling of the runes in your chart, runes in your rune shamanism videos of the 3/8 chart different when you discuss each one individually? Probably because they're spelled differently in different places, and I may have gotten confused and lazy. I don't know any other reason why. So I'm a hypocrite. I just got on that guy's case for spelling things wrong. I may have been in between deciding which pronunciation and spelling I preferred. It could have been that as well. There's no big, huge reason. Just move past it. Yeah, The Last Temptation of Christ. Yeah, that was the movie. Steve Sharlock, I remember when that movie came out that fundamentalist Christians would picket the movies. And all it did was drive up ticket sales because it got them on the news. And they go, look at all these Christians talking about this movie. You can't, it's evil. And people are like, ooh, I want to go see that. Steve Sharlock, question. What do you think is the best mantra or meditation to help quit smoking cigarettes? I have been using Hula Nama, O Nama. Is that, you got a whole mantra there? Hula Nama, O Nama Shivaya? Those are two different mantras. I mean, I don't have anything against you putting those together. But the best, I don't know that there's a best. The best mantra is going to be found here. I have to look at your chart to know which deity and which planet is helping you in which way. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah. It's not Om Namah Shivaya. I don't know if the spell check changed it for you. It's Om Namah. The H is silent. Shivaya. It's actually not silent, but you might as well not pronounce it. Om Namah Shivaya. That is, as a Vedic astrologer and a mantra prescriber, because that's what they are, they're prescriptions. There's a lot of mantras out there that people should not be doing because they're not aligned with them astrologically. There are a handful of mantras that are like vitamin C. Everybody should be taking it every day. And that is Om Namah Shivaya is one of them. It's very safe, it's very all-purpose, and it's one of those things where you don't know where you need to go, you don't know what you need to do, just chant that going, take me to the teacher or the mantra or the deity that I need. For now, I'm going to chant this. It's an all-purpose one that'll take you wherever you need to go. Okay, Andy LMT, if Rahu is my Aruda, would working with him help quitting substances? Again, I don't know. You need to look at your chart. See, Rahu is very powerful in my chart. Rahu is doing a lot for me. Rahu is in my 11th house in Gemini. He is as happy as he could possibly be. He is working so hard to help me become a networker. This is why my sole advertisement is done here, what I'm doing right now, because that's Rahu in the 11th house in Gemini. That's what he does. He's all about the internet. Say it once, and I will broadcast it all over the world. And not only that, I will archive it so that people can watch it over and over again for years to come. That's Rahu. You do things once, and it just keeps doing it. The difference between Mars and Saturn especially. Saturn is hard work. Oh, you want to get across the bridge? Okay, let's build the bridge. Start by getting that giant block of wood, and then we gotta shape that block of wood and put it there. Okay, good. That took you a month. All right, we need 10,000 more. Keep going. That's Saturn, and that's Mars. Rahu says, screw that. Can you just make a giant boomerang or something and just launch me across to the other side? In warfare, Rahu is smart bombs. You just sit there and press a button and. So Rahu is working his ass off for me, but when I've chanted to Rahu, I have nightmares. I wake up screaming because I'm being attacked by ghosts, and so all right, I don't chant to Rahu. I just don't mess with it. I let Rahu do his job. So for you, quitting substances might be the opposite. You might need to find out, who puts Rahu in his place. Maybe chanting to Jupiter, chanting to Thor. So I have to look at your chart to know. Christine Clearwater, okay. So I need to see if you're asking a question. If you're new to the channel, Christine, the way that I respond is to questions. The way that I know you're writing a question is you write question. Otherwise, I don't know if you're just spouting your opinion, and there's a bunch of people doing that, and we don't have time for that. I only want to deal with the questions. So if you want to ask me a question, put question, and I will know that you're asking a question. Evan Price, question. Is that you playing flute during the break? It is very nice. Yes, sir, that is me. Thank you. Kingslayer 44, question, and you can go onto my channel and just type in flute, and 3 or 4 songs will come up of me playing flute. Different kinds of flutes. Kingslayer 44, question. Would love your opinion on what you think the heart signifies. That's a huge question. Could you ask in what regard? What does the heart signify, spiritually and or physically? Is there a significance to the heart? Well, all right. Before I let my intellect run wild with that, let me just see. The heart is where, what's come to mind? The heart is where the home is. So it's the home of your soul. It's the middle self. There are 3 selves. There's an upper self, a middle self, and a lower self. I'm touching my navel. The lower self is the navel. The lower self is the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind. The upper self is the third eye, crown chakra. You're receiving things from the ancestors, from the ascended masters. You dwell here in the heart. This is why the heart is such a big deal. This is why people say, truly from my heart, I love you. I say this from the bottom of my heart. It means that this is something that is coming from them spiritually. It's also strongly connected to emotions, but that's not entirely 100%, totally the case. Because, there's a downside. People who want to talk about, I'm a heart-centered person, and everything is from the heart, and I wish you would just come from the heart. That, when you get somebody who's really too far in that direction, then the heart center has a downside, which is it can't tolerate being alone. This is what religion is. So people, interestingly enough, terrorists who blow people up are doing it because they are desperately alone. And they believe that if we could all come together and be one in our heart-centered religion, then there would be no problems. Of course, obviously, we see them completely differently. But if you were to allow them at some point, they would probably break down to that. Of course, there's all kinds of other crazy things going on, so don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that they're wonderful spiritual people. They're obviously very disturbed. But this is the cult leader or the born-again Christian who comes to you with a tract and says, you need to accept Jesus. When you go to church and you walk in the front door and there's somebody there, hi, praise the Lord. Welcome. You're loved here. And people who are really emotionally fragile, that attention will break them down, and they want to connect because they're so alone. One of the downsides of the heart center is to say that we all need to come together and believe this one belief. And that's why in church, when people are singing, they feel so connected and they're weeping. It's because they're all connecting on that soul level. But then it becomes this need to have everybody. It's like the Borg. You will be assimilated. The need to assimilate everybody because The heart center wants to connect with everybody. And it wants to do that within, it'll find a deity like Jesus or Krishna. The Krishnaites, the guys at when they're dancing around at I don't know if they do it anymore, at the airport with their shaved head and their ponytail, and Krishna is everything. Oh, you worship Shiva? Oh, Shiva is just Krishna. Oh, you worship Hanuman? Hanuman is just, Rama is just Krishna. Odin is just Krishna. Everything is Krishna. Because if you all bond together in Krishna, then you're all one and you're all safe. And so it's an overextension. So there's ups and downs with everything. So it makes me want to ask you all kinds of questions like, why are you asking that? But we'll save that for another time. Crazy, beautiful question. Can providing compassion and empathy help with the unmasking? Or does one need to go through that process alone? Ooh, you're making me want to ask all kinds of questions. I don't know you, so take this with a grain of salt. My first reaction to that question is that you have codependent issues. Wanting to help others, you're a giver, right? You're a lover. You're one of those people that love too much, right? I could be wrong. That's what I get in that question. Can providing compassion and empathy help with the unmasking? Well, the unmasking is your unmasking. So did you immediately assume it was other people's unmasking that you need to help them with? Because when we go through this, it's going to be your unmasking of yourself. So it makes me want to pull the mask of the empathizer, the compassionate giver. I want to take that mask away from you, because underneath that is something very different. And I don't want to pull your covers too far down, but there's an opposite side of that. That if I'm right about what I'm reading here, when you are giving compassion and empathy, it's your projection. What you really want is you want compassion and empathy. But it's so painful for you that you project it onto others, and so you're a giver. What you really want is for yourself. So the unmasking of that is for you to cry and to mourn and to want it for yourself. Be selfish, not so selfless. If you're being selfless in the way that I think you are, it's really a way to avoid the pain that you have. Now again, I don't know you. I could totally be wrong. But to answer your question, yeah, we all need to go through it alone. We all die alone. We all mourn alone. All of us do. When my father died, it was very traumatic for me. And I remember I was working on a film back when I was an actor, and my father was in the process of dying, and I was away. I was thousands of miles away. And I was outside, and I started weeping. And, if you go through this, your body weeps in this way where it's like it's uncontrollable sobbing, and there's like, it's like, mentally you could be like, I don't know why this is happening. It's just something physically your body has to go through. And I remember people coming up trying to fix me and make me all better, and I hated that. And there was one friend I had, and she would just come and just sit next to me and hold my hand. Wouldn't say a word. She would just sit next to me and hold my hand. Or sometimes just sit next to me and just say nothing. And that was somebody who just had my back. And when I started thanking her about it and telling her thank you so much, she said, "You don't remember, do you?" I said, "Remember what?" She said, "My brother died when we were in college," because she was somebody I knew in college. She said, "My brother died, and everybody was trying to fix me, and you would just come and sit next to me and just hold my hand. And you were the only one that helped me. Everybody else trying to fix me wasn't helping." So I think this goes back to the question I had, so take the mask off and live in that alone. That's the kindest thing in my experience, you can do for somebody. Anyway, I don't know where that question came from. Steve Sharlog question. When working with the 5 elements, is there a difference energetically between using the hand seals and the breath sounds? Is there a difference? Well, of course there's a difference. One is, you're connecting the nervous system via the hands, and the other one is you're using sound, and I think they can go together. Experiment with it. That was very early on in my putting together this, and I was grabbing from different traditions and bringing them together. So to be honest with you, I haven't even done that practice in years, the way that I gave it. So I would say, please experiment with it and see what your results are. I would love to hear the outcome of that for you. All right, so let's see. Let me see. Question. No, a lot of people talking, no questions. Ghost in the Machine. Question. I met someone who had the same dream as me about people and dragons. How should I connect to that relationship? I have no idea. Look, here's what's really going on. You met somebody and you had a strong emotional connection to them. And you're wanting me to justify that for you and tell you that, oh my God, this is a soulmate. I don't know if it's a woman or a man or whatever, what kind of relation. That's an amazing, that almost never happens. You know who that person is. What you need to do is because you guys are meant to be connected. That's what you're asking me to tell you. I have no idea if that's true or not. If it is, I am happy for you. Why you had the same dream, I don't know. Maybe you guys are connecting to something, I don't know. But I will tell you this. First off, all relationships in the beginning are projection. Last night I was watching what is that called? Anyway, a movie about a guy who was, the guy who went undercover voluntarily for the FBI to reveal price fixing in the lysine corn business. I forget what it's called. Anyway, brilliant movie. If I can remember the name, or if somebody remembers it, I'll tell you. But at one point, he's talking to the FBI guy, and he's going on and on and on and on about whatever. And of course, the FBI guy is just listening. He's not saying anything. He's just listening because that's his job. This is a huge amount of information he's getting. He needs to get this information, and so he's just listened to the guy for hours, right? So you hear the voiceover afterwards. You hear him saying, yeah, he's a really good guy. That's the thing. I can see us going fishing together or whatever. That's projection, because he's projecting onto him from a really narcissistic perspective, because he wants somebody to listen to him so bad. In his mind, if somebody listens to him, they're a good person. It's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump loves Fox and Friends. Fox and Friends will just say whatever the hell Donald Trump wants to say. And so he calls them for years. He's been calling that show. They're very honorable people. That's his projection, because they listen to him and they tell him what he wants to hear. So you met somebody, you guys had the same dream, and now you want me to give you some big giant meaning behind it so that you can indulge in your projection on them. And all relationships in the beginning are projection. They have to be, otherwise we wouldn't connect. But what happens, like in relationships, the first 6 months, somebody said this, and this sounds accurate to me. The first 6 months is all projection. Oh my God, they're just so me, and they finish my sentence, and we're just like, and the sex is so great, and we're just, and I have that. And then around 6 months to 9 months, you're fighting over all kinds of nonsense, because now you realize it's another human being. You're starting to see who they really are. And now it's not, you were totally soulmates. Now there's two people fighting. There's power plays. So enjoy this projection. You don't need me to tell you what the meaning of it is. You guys had the same dream, and that connects you on all kinds of levels, and you get to talk about it. Just enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Just let yourself enjoy it. You know, the thing about karma is all relationships are karmic, meaning that there's a karmic debt that needs to get paid off. Otherwise, karma is gravity. Sucks you to the other person. I don't know what it is about that person. It's karma. It sucks you to the other person, and you have a debt that both of you need to interchange and give to each other, and that debt you feel like is, wow, we are meant to be together, because you are. Once that debt is paid, that relationship will come apart. If you have a karmic destiny with somebody, there is nothing in the universe that can keep you from them. Which is why you don't need to call a psychic and say, when am I going to meet my husband? Is he going to have dark hair? What should I do to attract him? If it's meant to happen, if meant to happen. If there is a karmic debt, you will find each other. When you have paid off your karmic debt, there is no force in the universe that will keep that bond. There's nothing that can keep you together. It's over. Patrick Boyer question, what the hell does this cancer in the watery emotional home of the mother even mean? That's a good question, damn it. What the hell does that mean? Stupid cancer with the watery emotional. What is that? What the hell is that? Well, I don't know how you want me to answer that question. It means nothing. There you go. It's total nonsense. It means absolutely nothing. Or it's a secret, and I'm sorry, it's a secret. You're never going to figure it out. And try as you may, we know, but you don't. I don't know how you want me to answer that question. Mad Sweeney's beer. Question, how would somebody write their own mantras? Well, they wouldn't. That's not how mantras work. What you're talking about is affirmations. That's totally different. Affirmations do not do anything. I'm sorry, they don't. Affirmations is the conscious mind masturbating to itself. I shouldn't say they don't do anything. They can be helpful. But if you have an unconscious, meaning you're not aware of it, so you can't say to me, I don't have an unconscious agenda about that, because if it's unconscious, you obviously don't know. The best anybody can say is, well, if that's true, I'm not aware of it. It's the best anybody can say about it. Mantras are sound signatures that go directly into the unconscious to break up unconscious nonsense, false assumptions, false beliefs, fears. And this is why you go to an astrologer, astrology.thunderwizard.com, because a mantra for one person is not going to work for somebody else. If it's a very specific planetary mantra to a specific deity, you could be, one person can worship Kali, and if it has the right syllable in front of it based on their moon sign and all that kind of stuff, it could be the most healing, wonderful. You take that same mantra, give it to somebody else, and it will be the most challenging hell they've ever been through. They both get healed. One is challenging and one is pleasant. So you writing your own mantras, you can't do that. You need to. It's like going to the doctor and saying, "How can I write my own prescription?" And the doctor says, "How long have you been in medical school again?" You can't write prescriptions. You don't know the first thing about how to prescribe medication for yourself. Mantras are the same. You can't just write yourself your own mantra. In my experience, maybe someday you will, when you become a fully realized being. You will see it in the universe and you will be able to do it. Because mantras are seen. They're not written. The Vedas were not written. They were seen. They were heard. Somebody heard them and then memorized them, and then eventually they were put down. They were written down. Same, I believe, with the myths. There's a guy who chants the Old Norse myths in Old Norse, and he's got a meter to it, and it sounds a lot like Vedic chanting. And I believe that's, our ancestors chanted the myths long before they were written down. That's how you memorize them. The cadence, the sound, the pronunciation, all do things to the brain, and they're not made up. They are seen. They are transmitted. So if you want a mantra for you, go there. Astrology.thunderwizard.com. All right, let's see here. Where's the questions? Question, NA question. Should astrology or does astrology take into account the day the heartbeat begins? What do you mean the day the heartbeat begins? No. It's when you're hitting air, because it's when you're out in the air. The moment you hit the air, you have now interfaced with external reality. That's when it starts. It's not to say that there probably isn't a science that would go with that, but that's not what astrology does. To my knowledge, it's the moment that you hit air. Looking for the questions. KTK question. Is there a tribal soul desire? Did you ask that already? Somebody else already asked that. Is it you? Because if I didn't answer it, why are you asking? If I did answer it, why are you asking me a question again? I mean, people do this all the time. They ask me the same question over and over again. And I end up giving them the same answer over and over again. Is there a tribal soul desire? Of course. Why do you want to ask that question? Why is it important for you to know that? Do the ancestors still have a soul desire one can be committed to? Why do you want to commit yourself to somebody else's soul desire? All I hear in that question is that you really need to get your identity from being in a group. That's what I hear in that question. I have nothing against that, and I'm not saying that there isn't, for instance, in my chart, my Atma Karaka is moon, which means that I have a karmic lesson, which is I need to see the world as my family, meaning that that's one of the ways that I grow. If I don't see the world as my family, I feel totally alone, because my nuclear family, forget about it. I mean, they're all either dead or I have no, the only people left in my nuclear family are my brother and sister. My brother I'll never talk to again. I don't even know if he's alive. And my sister, I love my sister a lot, but we don't really connect all that much. We're not all that close. I'm really, when it comes to family, and especially now, I'm all alone. All by myself. You guys, I'm more connected to you guys than I am to my neighbors. So that's helpful for me to see the whole world as my family. That's my karmic, one of my karmic lessons. So I'm not saying that your need to connect to a soul desire or sort of have the ancestors' soul desire work through you is anything negative. It just means that your first priority should be your own soul desire. Because the ancestors are far more interested in your soul desire than theirs. Their only soul desire, by the way, if we're talking about the elves, like the ascended masters, you may be talking about, there's the ancestors and then there's the ascended masters who are also the ancestors. And sometimes I use that word interchangeably. Sometimes when I say the ancestors, what I mean is the ascended masters, the elves. But again, it's kind of smacks of like tribalist, folkish heathenism, which is really an escape from all kinds. I got all kinds of feelings about that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I have a really strong desire to connect to my ancestors and bring healing to them and to let them speak through me. But the first and foremost desire is my soul desire. And what I hear in that is you're wanting to escape into the group speak, like I was talking about. Somebody asked me about the heart center. Remember, I talked about the negative side of the heart center. I'm hearing that in that question. So yes, of course, there's a tribal soul desire, and of course, the ancestors have a soul desire that one can be committed to. But that's none of your business. If you follow your soul desire, you will be healing the ancestors. Doing something in order to please others is the most destructive thing you can do for yourself, for everybody on the planet, and for the ancestors as well. So I would take a look at that. I would want to ask you all kinds of questions. I'm almost positive that I would reveal a codependent escape issue with you. You're trying to escape some pain within yourself, or you're trying to connect to mommy and daddy in some way. I could be totally wrong. I'm okay with that, but that's my first take on that question. Okay, looking for the questions. Corey Lanier question. I'm trying to find out how to purchase a rune reading. Go to runereadings.thunderwizard.com. Let me just double check that. There's no space there. I didn't put a space. You don't have my permission to spell for me. Spell check. Let me double check that. runereadings.thunderwizard.com. Yep, there it is. runereadings.thunderwizard.com. And I also have a certification for that as well, which we already talked about. runecertification.thunderwizard.com. All right, so again, looking for the questions. Skyclad Faye question. Can you quickly recap what the topic was tonight? No, you'll have to wait until it's been archived, and then you can watch it from the beginning. Otherwise, you'd be here all night. NDLMT question. Oneness is a common theme in New Age. That's not a question, that's a statement. Whenever anybody starts their question with a statement, I get suspicious that they are trying to force feed me their assumptions because they have a conclusion that they want me to justify for them, and they're going to present it as a question. We'll see how right I am. Oneness is a common theme in New Age. I felt an energy I felt an energy that felt like I was totally one with the universe. Are we all one, or is that a projection many are experiencing? Yes and no. Of course we are all connected. Of course. We don't live in a dualist universe. We live in a hologram. The way to understand how a hologram works is to get a multifaceted, clear crystal. Like, when I was a kid, my mom had that in our house. We had this crystal chandelier. It wasn't crystal. It was that fake glass or whatever. And they had these big, multifaceted crystals, and she would take them down and clean them. And I would pick it up and I would look through them. And as I'm looking through one of the facets, I could see all the other 8 or 10 facets and all the little pictures that were coming in. So from our narcissistic perspective, Krishna is everything. And you look through, and here's the one for Krishna. It says Krishna right there, and you look through it and you see Odin and Shiva and Jupiter and Jesus and all the other gods, and you go, oh, all the gods are Krishna, man. No, that's just your projection. So it is your projection. It's not an either-or scenario. The fact that you said oneness is a common theme in New Age, you're trying to differentiate yourself from New Age, or you're wanting me to, I don't know, that's a whole other agenda. You have some other agenda in that, it sounds like. Because there's no need to ask that. You could have just simply asked, I felt an energy, so does that mean you used to be in New Age movement and you're not anymore, or what does that mean? Anyway. Your real question is, are we all one, or is that a projection? Yes to both questions. Crazy beautiful question. I get much out of the videos you and Sathicus have done, but have you guys considered bringing on board the voice of the Divine Feminine to reach a greater audience? Well, there's a lot of assumptions in that question. So it makes me want to say to you, you're not the first person to have responded. When I did one video about the one thing that women should not do, and I from a man's perspective, I talked about some of the things that the imbalances in the feminine. And one woman responded, shouldn't you during a live Q&A have a woman there to give her perspective? And I said, why should I do that? This is from a man's perspective. Doesn't mean it's the truth. Doesn't mean it just says this is how we experience it. So why do you feel that need? I'm gonna, I am totally open to that, but it makes me ask why you need to do that. What me and Sethicus do when we're doing our thing is something that, and he can attest to this. When we get together, we only know each other through this. But when we start talking, especially live, there's other stuff going on. And we both get really excited about it and all of that. Why do you need to bring that in? It sounds like you feel you're underrepresented. It sounds like you feel like you're being singled out or attacked or something like that. Let that be what it is. I just recently was interviewed by Tamu Ngina, the priestess. Really wonderful woman, by the way. Go to her channel. Here's how it's spelled. Tamu Ngina. She's got a great channel. She's just a really sweet, balanced, wonderful, deep, very healing person. If you want that perspective, go talk to her. But she interviewed me, and we had a little, connection there. If you want to see the male and the masculine and the feminine, go watch that. It kind of irks me why you want to change that. Are you saying you want to be that person? You should come and be that? I don't know. So again, you guys are new to the channel, so forgive me, you're getting the brunt of it, and I am experiencing the Rahu connection, which is he wants to tear away all the masks. This is why I say, if you're going to ask a question on my channel, first off, be educated on what I teach. Now you're reading my books, so I'm not attacking you personally here. But the best way to get the best response from me is if you're asking a question from within what I teach, from the books and from the videos. And part of my job is to help you get what you want out of life. And what I do is when in your questions, I'm looking for what it is you really want. And most people, myself included, we lots of times ask questions that are masking what it is we really want. And when I can smell that in a question, I'm going to reveal that. And I'm going to say, what you're really asking me is, I'm not just a teacher like, here's all this information, take this information down. I'm a teacher. I'm a transformer. I'm a teacher, meaning I can see what's going on, and my teacher does it to me. So it's not that I'm anything special, it's just my gift. I can tell what people are really thinking and feeling underneath the surface that they're not aware of. And how they're, we all delude ourselves in things, and I can see it in the questions sometimes. So my job is to help you with that. Now, if you're on the phone with me, I'm not as harsh all the time. I'm not as direct all the time unless it's a crisis and I really need to get in there and do some surgery. But more often than not, I'll spend a lot more time listening to you and be, more smooth and helping you to get to some understandings. But when you're coming onto this, I have, maybe 30 seconds or a couple minutes with each person. So I have to get to the heart of the matter as quickly as possible. And you're going to experience that as me, pulling your covers down or judging you, and that's not at all what's happening. This is the power of Rahu. This is the power of Jupiter retrograde. And I am a human being, and sometimes I screw up. Like last time I screwed up. And I got mad at somebody, and I didn't understand what he was saying, and I overreacted, and then I owned it. And I'm owning it again. So take what you can for all that. But, think through your question and think about what it is you really want to ask me. And you're better off limiting your questions to what I teach. Because otherwise I'll go off on why are you asking that question kind of. And again, it's not personal. Let's see if I've... And the LMT question, what is the difference between the ancestors and the elves? Well, there's the ancestors that have recently passed, like your great-grandparents, going all the way back. The elves are the ascended masters of the human race, so they are the ancestors, the true ancestors, the deep ancestors of all humans, and they show where human beings are all destined to go. I don't care who it is. Think of the worst individual. That person will become an ascended master. They will learn and they will grow. There is nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets eternal punishment. Nobody gets spiritual lobotomies. Everybody, no matter how many millions or trillions of years it takes, they will learn and they will grow and they will achieve enlightenment. It will happen. So there's the newly deceased ancestors, and then there's the elves, who are the shining ones. They're the very distant ancestors who have achieved mastery. They may actually, I suppose it's possible that there could be an elf that might be your grandparent, maybe, but they finally got it, and now they're in Ljósálfheim, light elf home. Okay, let's see what else. Steve Sharlog, question: are the soul desire and dharma different? No. I have received many signs I'm supposed to be a teacher. But when I think without limitations and judgment, I see my camping in the woods. Why can't you do both? Why can't you be teaching people from the woods? Here's how the soul desire works. And yes, the soul desire is dharma. So if you're thinking dharma of what I'm supposed to do, like God's will, well, God came to me and called me and said, I'm supposed to be a celibate monk. I wanted to be married and have kids, but no, I give that up for the greater glory of God. A bunch of nonsense. Your dharma is not what you're supposed to do. It's what you want to do. Your karma is to work through your egotistical narcissism that says, being a dancer is silly. I'm not supposed to do that. I should go and be like Mother Teresa and heal the sick and the poor. I don't want to be selfish. Your ego is the one telling you that. That's your ego. That's your narcissism, wanting to be accepted and seen as spiritual. I'm not blaming you. You learned it from your parents. You learned it from society. You learned it from your pastor. You learned it from somewhere. And it's painful. When you go through the karmic lesson of letting go of other people's opinion of you, it will be incredibly sad and painful because the loss of being loved is horrible. And that's what we want more than anything else, is to be loved and accepted. And when we go against that, it feels like we're dying. And it feels horrible. We feel guilty and horrible and all that stuff. So if your soul desire is to live in the woods and camp, then the question isn't, how can I be a teacher? Is, how can I teach while I'm doing what gives me the greatest joy? And I know for a fact there are people out there who need to go camping in the woods. They need it. And so you teach from the woods. That's how you do it. It's a win-win. The karmic thing is to look at how you're beating yourself up. The way I know that somebody is onto their when I and I'm going to do a certification for this, how to help people find their soul desire. But what I do is I first say, in your fantasy world where you don't have to make money and you don't have to follow anybody else's expectations and there are no rules except that you have to be crazy happy and it's only makes you happy, what are you doing? If what comes to mind is I'm camping in the woods, I know that people are tapping into their soul desire, because when I ask them that question, they'll go, okay, this is going to be really stupid. This is so silly. I already know it's their soul desire. That's it. They've already told me. Because the part of them that's saying that it's silly and stupid is their narcissistic ego that wants to be somebody and something in the world. And, you're not supposed to enjoy yourself and be crazy, deliriously happy. And that's the opposite. You are supposed to be crazy, deliriously happy, and how you give that to others is your path. So the next thing you do is you say to yourself, all right, so camping is what gives me happiness, and teaching, so I'm a teacher in the woods and I'm camping. How do I make money doing that? It's real simple. You take people on excursions into the wilderness to teach them whatever the hell it is you want to teach them. People will pay out the nose to have you guide them into the wilderness and sit down and light a fire for them and teach them about the gods or, whatever. What was that? A while back, men were going like, and I don't know, doing some weird New Age manscaping thing, and I don't know what the hell it was. People will pay all kinds of money for that. So there's your dharma, there's your soul desire, and there's your career, all in one. Sky-clad Faye, question, are you familiar with the Kapha, Vata, and Pitta personalities? Vaguely, I know of them. I'm obviously very Pitta, fiery. I was told I'm Pitta with Vata imbalance. What does it mean? I'm smart enough, I could probably bullshit my way through that and be 90% accurate, but you really should talk to somebody who's into, what do you call that? Vedic, Vedic healing, the Vedic medicine, ancient medicine. I forget what that's called. Find somebody who does that, because I unfortunately don't know enough about it to be educated. Mad Sweeney's Bear, question, isn't the eclipse happening right now as we speak? No, it's not going to happen for another, I think, 2 hours at least. Sugar Seas, question, how do you perceive and experience the mineral kingdom in connection with our spiritual growth? Are you talking about crystals? Well, I mean, it's obviously very huge. I know it has something to do with that. I was do I have it here? It's next to my bed. I was on my what would have been the anniversary of my wife and I's anniversary. She passed away. It was very sad, and I found in the street as I was walking to my safe zone with my group and my teacher, and in the street was this, I showed you guys last time, this huge amethyst. So I know that that was her gift to me. She wanted to bring me healing. So I know that has a strong connection. Vedic astrology, astrology.thunderwizard.com. You can find out what is the best gemstone for you to wear around your neck whenever you go out into public. Mine is the moonstone because the moon is my Dharma Devata, the planet guiding me to help me on an unconscious level find my true path. So that's why I wear it. Other than that, I'm sure it's a huge science, and that's about all I know about it. Ghost in the Machine question, what are the worst assumptions about forgiving others? What are the worst assumptions about forgiving others? Well, I just made a video about this on the Patreon channel, which is thunderwizard.com. A private video for thunderwizard.com for people who are taking the Thunder Shamanism course. The worst assumption about forgiveness is that that forgiveness is about being kind to other people. Let me tell you something that is going to go counter to most of everything that you hear. Your spirituality should be ruthlessly selfish. You should only be asking, how is this going to help me spiritually? Because it is impossible for you to help yourself spiritually and not help everything else in the universe. It is also impossible for you to harm yourself without, at the very least, creating the possibility for harming everything else in the universe. So that it's just easy. Be selfish. If you're selfish, you don't have to worry about anybody else. Now, I say selfish in quotes because I don't mean selfish like, well, I want that guy's television, so I'm going to break into his house and steal his television. That's not what I mean, because that doesn't help you. That's not going to make you feel good. That's not going to give you what you want. That's operating out of fear. It's going to cause you and everybody else problems. So taking a crap in somebody's shoe is not something that helps you. So when it comes to forgiveness, you absolutely have to forgive everybody. Absolutely. Not because God told you, but because when you hold on to resentment, you create a justified victim experience which can cause you tremendous pain. It might even kill you, might give you, liver cancer and kill you. More worse than that, when you take unresolved resentment with you into the next life, it manifests as your karmic challenges. So people say, well, if I chose to be here, then how come there are these, and they don't talk about themselves. They always talk about somebody else, and they take the worst, the most extreme example of some poor infant born without any legs was raped at birth in India. How can they have chosen to do that? Of course, what they're really saying is that's how they feel about themselves. It's all a projection. They feel like that. Whatever they say. If that's true, then if they talk about somebody else, you know what their projection is. That's how they feel about themselves. And it's interesting because people, more often than not, always talk about, infants that are being raped. I mean, it's not one person that says it, multiple people. What does that tell me? It tells me we have a whole generation of people who feel like infants that are being raped. Totally powerless. And they're being, they're being fully controlled and tortured by everything and everybody else has all this power over them. That's what I hear. I'm not judging. It's just that's very sad. But if you take your resentment with you when you die, then you will create a scenario where you will have to work through that resentment. Because this is what the soul does. In between lives, the soul goes, I didn't get it. I made myself this challenge, and I really wanted to learn that, and still I was so wrapped up in my ego and my narcissism, I didn't get it. Okay, next time I'm just going to have to make it so unbearable for myself that I have to surrender to the universe and trust and let go. And you'll know there are people like this. I mean, I don't know some of them personally. All I know is what I see of them. People with these horrifically disfiguring diseases who do these seminars on hope and finding the joy in everything. And it's like, holy crap, if I was going through what they're going through, I would not, that would be the last thing I would be. How? That is a very advanced soul who says, this time around, I am not going to make that mistake again. In fact, I'm going to really learn the lesson of being appreciative. I'm really going to learn it. I went down, as I do almost every day, and at sunset, now it's, 80 degrees outside, sometimes more than that, and the water's like a bathtub. California ocean is like really cold in the winter. You have to wear a wetsuit. But in the summertime, you can just walk down and it's like a bathtub. Who needs Hawaii, man? And as I'm walking up to the edge and the sun's going down and the water's coming up and the water and the waves are so beautiful, and I just love the ocean so much, and it hit me. My fiance is dead. She can't see what I'm seeing right now. She sees it however she sees it, but I'm seeing it through this human body who's really seeing it in these 3 dimensions, and I'm experiencing it on my skin. And as I walked into the ocean, I just had this palpable gratitude for being alive and knowing that it could be gone tomorrow. And I'm here right now, and right now the water feels so good, and it smells good, and it sounds good, and the sun's going down, and people are laughing and having a good time. And, that comes from pain. It comes from the challenge of losing the most important essence of being that I've ever experienced. That if I could snap my fingers right now, I would leave all you guys behind and be with her forever. But that loss brought to me the reality of, look, and that's her gift to me, look at what you get to appreciate. Enjoy this, really enjoy this, the bittersweet. This is what your karma is trying to teach you. Your karma meaning your unbearable, because there's all kinds of, you have far more positive karma than negative karma going on. You just don't know it because the only karma that you're aware of are the challenging things. And you're whining and complaining about, this 0.5% when you've got 99.999999% of positive stuff, and you don't even think about that. You walk around without pain, you do this, whatever. So, I don't know where that came from, what the question was, but anyway. Where was I? So, about forgiving others. Oh, forgiving others. So, when you forgive others, what you do is you have to first acknowledge that you are angry, that you are furious. People who are givers, people who give too much, are unconsciously full of rage. You think, no, I love too much. No. You are full of selfish, self-centered rage. And when you give from a place of codependence, you are giving with a hook. And every time you give somebody a gift, you are trying to stick that hook in them. Because the people who give too much, no, my problem is I give too much. I just love too much. You love yourself too much. People who give too much say, I don't ask for much, but I deserve some recognition. Just this one day of the year, I don't. Whenever somebody says, I don't give much, I don't ask much. I don't ask much. Freudian slip. They really are not giving. Giving means you give without any expectation. Not, okay, I'm supposed to give to them and I'm not going to let it bother me. Nope. Giving is when that little kid walks by and, whatever, you have that lollipop you were going to suck on later, and you just give it to the kid and walk away, and it just makes you happy. I was surfing one day, and one of the things that I like to do in my favorite spot is, especially at low tide, is that, I like to gather sand dollars. And so I look for the sand dollars. It's one of the funnest things. I go out and I surf for 2 hours, and then it takes me, if I take my time, it'll take me 20 minutes, listening to and just makes me so happy. And I go and I look at the shells, and I pick up the shells, and I pick up the sand dollars, and I had this handful of sand dollars, and I'm coming up, and there are these two women there, and I just walked up to them and I said, "Here, beautiful ladies," and I gave them a handful of sand dollars, and it made me so happy. I did not go home saying, "I gave them sand dollars. Why aren't they over here having sex with me right now?" No, I forgot all about it. I just enjoyed it. So the point is that people who, that forgiveness means that your resentment, you can't have a resentment towards somebody unless you want something from them. I don't care who it is, the government. You have a resentment against the government, and you can list to me for days how the government, and you could be 100% right, how the government is doing it to you. You want the government to take care of you. You want the government to give things to you. Don't fucking bullshit me. Those of you QAnons, you want the government to fucking run your life and be your parents and give you everything. I find it so funny that the people who talk about freedom and freedom from government are the same people that when you tell them about, school or healthcare, they deserve healthcare and they deserve the school and they deserve the roads paved, but they shouldn't have to pay for it. That's communism. Well, who the fuck's going to pay for it then? Somebody's got to pay for it. You want the government to give you everything for free, and you want to then have all the freedom to not pitch in for it. So don't bullshit me with that. I don't care who you're resentful at, and I don't care what they did to you. You were abused by your parents, horrifically abused by them, and you have a resentment against them. As true as all of that may be, you are still waiting for them to wake up and to love you. And they didn't do it, or they're not doing it, and you are furious at them. So you have to own up to your part, is that you are wanting to demand love from them, and they're not giving it to you, and you hate them for it. Doesn't take away any of the horrible things they did to you. So when you acknowledge that your resentment means that you want something from somebody and you're trying to play God and control them, and they're not doing what you want, and when you realize that that was your doing, that you invested in that resentment for decades, when had you had the ability, and I'm not making fun of you, I still work through a lot of resentments. But had you had the ability, we all do in every moment, to say, you know what, they don't owe me that. I'm just going to let that go. And I'm going to find what I'm looking for in my own life and in my own soul. And I trust the universe. You can do that at any moment. I'm not talking about denial. Denial doesn't work. Because those same people that end up saying, I don't ask for much, are the same people who are in denial. They're the ones that'll talk about, oh yes, love and light, and I forgive everything and everybody. And I just, I don't buy into the negativity, and I don't go there. God damn my parents, they never loved me. Oh, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to go there. I'm making fun of it, but it's very real. I've been there. So when you own up to your rage, you have to feel it, and you have to ask, what is it that I didn't get? What was it that I wanted? Let me give you just an example in my life. I've said it numerous times. I'll say it again. My dad drank himself to death. He died of bladder cancer. He did a lot of really great things, but he did some things not so well. And he promised to take me places on trips, and he never did. He gave me a car and then took it back and crashed it and didn't replace it with another car. He drank all the time. He used to play with my emotions. He would call me up as he was drinking, and he would be really cruel and sit me down and make me think that he was going to say something really positive. He's asking about my life and my school. And then when I was done and I was all full of myself, and then he'd tell me, you know what I was doing when I was your age? And then he'd tell me how much better he was than me. It's some really awful, horrible things. But the truth is that my resentment about him was that, I was trying to control him. I wanted him to be the perfect dad, and maybe I had a right to want that from him, but he had the right to drink himself to death if that's what he wanted to do. It's his business. Yes, he did some unconsciously cruel things to me. He did some things in our family, manipulated my brother and I against each other in weird, messed up ways. Yeah, he did all that, but so what? Why is that still bothering me 10, 20, 30 years later? Because what I wanted is I wanted my dad to love me in a certain way. That's me wanting to tell him how to act. And he doesn't have to do that. So you have to get to that place. That's why you have to accept that you are fully responsible for your entire life. I don't care how bad it is. And it may be something far worse that I could endure. It's not that I could look at it and go, that I could do it. I don't know. There's some people I talk to that I've worked with that have gone through stuff I couldn't even imagine. I don't even want to imagine. But the rule is still the same. You created it. If not in this lifetime, in a previous lifetime. And if you do not take full 100% responsibility while having all of your feelings, all of your fear, your pain, your rage, your sadness, if you don't do that, then you're going to take it with you into the next life, and it's going to be, another challenge. It's not going to be fun. That's why suicide doesn't work. It's the only reason I'm still here. Because if I thought I could go and be with my wife, I would. Suicide doesn't work because whatever it is that you're going through, if you selfishly end your life now, you will have to experience the same thing but more intense. I read something that people who try to commit suicide, like jumping off of bridges, I think it only is people who jump off bridges. Or maybe I think it was even somebody who tried to kill themselves with a gun. That once they've taken the leap and they can't take it back, in like a split second, in a nanosecond, as they're falling to what they believe is to be their death, they see how clearly, oh my God, I could totally have fixed that. Oh my God, there was a way out the whole time. I was just so wrapped up in my narcissism, I couldn't see it. The one guy who shot himself, as he's pulling the trigger and he can't stop, it just nanosecond flashes in front of him. Oh shit. He survived, obviously. Anyway, so you have to forgive, not because it's the righteous thing to do. You have to forgive so that you can own up to, again, finding out what it is you really want. It all comes down to that. And to taking responsibility so that eventually, the whole point of all of it is so that eventually you can manifest your intentions from the integrity of your soul. That's what the elves are. The elves are the elves because they've mastered that. That's how you become an elf. You can do it in this lifetime. There's nothing preventing you from doing it in this lifetime. It might be really challenging. I don't know that I could do it, but I know that in every moment, if you stay in alignment with your soul desire and take action fearlessly towards what gives you the greatest joy, regardless of even if you think it might kill you, and literally it might kill you, if you do that every second from now until the end of your life, you will become an elf. Or you'll become one of Odin's warriors. Or you'll go to Folkvang. Or you'll become enlightened and go to Nirvana, or whatever word you want to use. Guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that. There's one thing I can guarantee you, it's that. Let me see, where was I? So that's, anyway, that's a question about that. Sandra Lavini question, what is it that you have said about people, and I am one of them, who say that they cannot identify their soul desire? What I say about those people is that you are in conflict. If when I ask you and I take you through, let's go to Fantasyland and fantasize, if you don't have to make money, and you don't have to take care of anybody else, and you don't have to meet anybody else's expectations, your only requirement is that you have as much fun as you can possibly stand. What is the one thing that you're doing? If you sit there and your response is, I don't know, it means that you have deep conflict within your unconscious mind, and you are fighting a battle between what your soul wants and what you think other people want from you. And for you to face what it is you truly want would mean you would have to disobey your parents or go against God or lose the love and affection of somebody, even if it's just an idea. That's what career.thunderwizard.com is all about. And I am going to be making a certification course, I believe, that is my plan anyway, to help people be able to walk people through that. an hour with me, and I'm 99% sure I can help you identify your soul desire. You being able to follow through on it is a whole other matter. You'll find out why it's so difficult and why you're so conflicted about it. But I'm pretty sure I can do that. So you're fighting with yourself about either meeting other people's expectations, getting somebody else's love, and what it is you truly want. And it's such an intolerable conflict that you pushed it into your unconscious mind, and so your response is, I don't know what my soul desire is. I go through it myself all the time. That's how I know. All the time I ask myself, what is it I want? I don't know. Okay, let me go walking on the beach for a while. Let's go surfing for a while, I'll figure it out. Once I figure it out, I know I'm going to get it. That's the great thing about it. I've learned that once I can go, what I want is, and if I can verbally state it out loud, it'll happen. I can give up on it. It's going to happen. Real Bacon question, what advice would you give to someone going through the dark night of the soul? That's a huge question. There's so much in that. I would need to talk to you to find out what you mean by dark night of the soul. There's no, you wanting me to give you a sugar pill for, I don't know what's going on with you. You know, this is the sign of somebody who really needs help. You're really isolated. You need a counselor, you need a teacher, you need a friend. You need to be talking with somebody. Go get counseling, really. My best advice for you is go get counseling. Going through the dark night of the soul doesn't mean anything. Here's a pill, it'll make you feel better. Honestly, you got to get honest with what's going on with you, and you've got to not be a secret. You've got to find somebody who can help you. Unless you're just bored and you're just asking a question. I doubt it. If you're going through the dark night of the soul and that's all you can say about it, you need somebody who can help you identify what's really going on. It's one of the things I do. Steve Sharlock, question. You've done a video on the planets and how they influence us in our chart. Do you think you will do videos about the houses and signs as well? I believe that is in this course. astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. I think I go into all of that. Ghost in the Machine gives me $2. Thank you, sir. Or ma'am. I don't know who you are. I'm assuming it's a sir, but whoever you are, thank you. Now I can get that yacht I was saving up for. That's my soul desire, is to have a yacht full of Russian bikini swimsuit models and Brazilian. And for $500, you can come on my boat with me. Now I can finally do it. Thank you. And in all seriousness, thank you. I appreciate it. Skyclad Faye question. What if you sit down and fantasize and there is more than one? I have a very active imagination. How would I differentiate between imagination and soul's desire? Well, your imagination will give you your soul's desire. You know, this is one of the things, and I could be wrong here, but I find this a lot with especially mothers, more so than fathers, but parents. Parents, when you ask them what is your soul desire, one of the first things they'll say is to make my child happy, to hug my child. So I say, well, that's part of it. Whatever it is you're doing, they're with you and you're hugging them. So if you have a bunch of desires and among them is I want to hug my kids and I want to help my grandmother and I want to, if those are part of the soul desires, that's just a given. That's like you also want to have good sex and have good bowel movements and have good food. You don't think about that, but you want all that's a need that you have in your life. So differentiate between those and then the one that doesn't line up with that. Like I want to surf every day. Well, that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me hugging my kids or taking care of my grandparents. That's the one, that's your soul desire. The other ones are it's just part of the game, especially for mothers. So unless I'm wrong, that's probably what's going on. And I could be wrong. I am wrong all the time. Or I should say I have been wrong many times in the past. Okay, there you go. No more questions. I'll take a break. We're probably done for the evening. I'll take a break and come back. I think I've said what I need to say, but let's just take a quick break, and then we'll wrap this puppy up. Alrighty. Last thing I was just thinking on the break was that, you know, if you're new to this channel and you feel like I'm too judgmental or cruel, especially if you're new to teaching with me, to my teaching, first off, take what I say with a grain of salt. You know, if it hits you like I'm coming at you too hard from a wrong angle and I'm off base, take it with a grain of salt. Having said that, I'm usually right. I'm usually tapping into something that's deep in your unconscious mind. Unconscious means you're not aware of it. So you may say, you know, like, you know, I pass through this because I'll do this and I'll pull somebody's covers. I'll say what you really want to ask me in that question is, and I'll go on. It's as much for everybody else listening as it is for them. And then, you know, I scroll past all of the justifications. You notice that. I only read the questions. I don't read anything else most of the time. But I pass by them and I see the justifications. No, I only ask that because, and no, I'm not like that. And I know that's probably not true. You may actually think that that's what's going on, and I know I sound like I think I'm God or something, but what I'm saying to you is that first off, understand that where I'm coming from, just like Loki, we'll wrap it up and put it together. Just like Loki and just like Rahu, where I'm really coming from is that I want to help you. Imagine if you knew somebody and they had a cancerous tumor, you know, deep in their back of their skull somewhere. Oh, here's a good example, a dog. This was a woman was watching television and her dog bit her on the knee and took out a huge chunk of her skin. She was like, what the hell's going on with my dog? Why did my dog do that? And they did a biopsy. I mean, I guess she apparently had the piece of, skin left, or maybe there was some left on her. They did a biopsy and found out it was cancerous. The dog was coming in and instinctually doing surgery to save, his or her master. I'm like that dog. I can smell it. I can smell the unconscious, whatever it is. It's usually codependence. I can smell it. You won't be able to escape it. So just know at some point you're going to ask a question and I am going to go off on your codependence. If you can hear that and not let it drive you away, if you can hear that and not take it personally, sometimes I'm wrong. I'll accept that I'm probably wrong some of the time. Most of the time I'm right. But if you can see it like I'm that dog who is out of a desire to help you, and the only way I know how to help you is to get that cancerous tumor out of you as fast as possible. If you can see it that way and meditate on what I say, it might be really helpful for you. It might be very challenging to hear. And, people leave me for this. I had one person just recently left me for this. And I should listen to this. This is the second time this has happened. Somebody, a long time ago, didn't like something, somebody, an apprentice that I was working with, didn't like what I had said on a video and put a comment up. And I responded to the comment by writing back. And of course, texts, you never hear anything. That person got very offended and we ended up talking about it. And at the end, the individual was, thank you so much. I see this was all my projection. I was projecting my stuff onto you. Thank you so much. A week later, same thing happened. Stupid me, I think, oh, well, this person knows what's going on, so I write it. Nope. I get letter after email about what a horrible person I am and how I'm this and that, and I'm never talking to you again. And happened again just recently. Same thing happened. This one I didn't see coming. And I said something that pushed a button, and this person wanted to publicly, comment, not on the Q&A, but on a video, and I responded thinking, oh, okay, we're going to have this is a great student teacher discussion, and other people can enjoy it since you want to do it publicly. Blah, blah, blah. As soon as I did that, disappeared off the face of the planet. No idea where this person is. Not even a F you, I'm out of here. Nothing. And it's because that there was that one last bit in both cases. This one last bit, and this has to go back to the forgiveness thing. One last bit of victim mentality that they were not going to give up. And they were going to hold on to that, so much so that if I didn't co-sign it, they were going to see me as whatever they see me and justify to themselves and have a temper tantrum and leave. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I won't lose any sleep over that. Trust me. That's, by the way, why you pay me. You pay me so that I don't get emotionally attached to telling you the truth. I don't get emotionally attached to your opinion of me. That's why you pay me. And that is for your protection. Because otherwise, if I care about what you think, if you're my girlfriend, I'm going to care about what you think. And I'm going to tell you, you look good in those jeans. If you're my student, I'm going to tell you, yeah, no, I can see the outline of your underwear, big time in those jeans. Yeah, you do not look good in those jeans. You asked, I'm telling you. So if I come at you like that, especially if you're new and you can hear it, first off, don't let it ruin your evening and don't take it personally. Try and apply it. Try and be as ruthless and go, okay, when is something sometimes true and sometimes false? What part of that is true? And meditate on Okay? All right. So I don't know if we have any more questions or not. If so, I'll answer them. I don't see a question here. Nope, I don't see any questions. All right, that's it for me, my friends. So in another hour, probably between, I think in another 60 minutes, it's going to happen. So if you're watching this live, you can go ahead and do your meditation. If you want to chant, you can chant to Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya. I've got it written down somewhere in here. But take that and ask. If you ask at this time, you will find out. And it is a really powerful way to release, the delusions that are going to cause you more challenges later on. And ask yourself, okay, what is it that, I'm stumbling over the words, but what is it that I can do? What can I let go of? Show me something that's not serving me that I can get rid of. Something along those lines. You can also talk to the ancestors in the Northwest. Talk to Shiva. Rahu's already doing his job. You don't need to talk to him. You don't need to talk to Loki. You can if you want. My thing is, listen, Loki is fully empowered right now. He's going to do his job. As he always does. He doesn't care what you think or what you want. I mean, he cares for you, but if you end up hating him and calling him a pervert or a traitor, he's not going to take that on at all. He will not use that against you in any way. It's okay. It's just like when you're taking out, a splinter. The cat may scratch you. He doesn't mean to. He just can't help it. But he's really grateful afterwards. He knows the same from you. You might not understand. You may be a victim and cry and scream and whine and complain and call him all kinds of names. But he loves you that much. He's going to do it anyway. So, and then keep an eye on after tonight, for the next few weeks at least. Keep an eye on how information is being assimilated. There may be a shift in how information is being delivered, like on the news about certain things. We might finally reach that tipping point where finally people are going to start to go, there's something stinks about this. There's something to all this investigation stuff. We might get to that point. I know a lot of you may not agree with that. But look at it and see in your life, and look at how you are. Look at where you were just buying into certain things about yourself or certain things about the universe, and now you're starting to go, I wonder if that really is accurate. Maybe that was just my own narcissistic, egotistical projection about that. If you are open to that and you're willing to say things like, I'm not sure that that's really true about me. If that's true, I'm not aware of it, but I'm willing to become aware. If I'm, I can't even say it. I'm so heterosexual, I can't even say it hypothetically. If I'm a latent homosexual, I want to know. If that, I can honestly say, if that's true about me, I am definitely unaware. But this is the time to ask those kinds of questions, and if there is something, you will find out. Okay? All right, so that's it for me tonight. Yep, that's it for me tonight, my friends. I will see you the next time.